Come on, let's go.
We're going to start off the meeting with reorganization. Dan, we're going to reorganize before we start the meeting, okay?
Sure.
Did you want to?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I want to nominate Mr. McDermott for the chairman's seat.
I'll second that.
Board Member McDermott,
Yes.
Board Member Gattens,
Yes.
Chairman Walsh.
Yes. Go ahead. You want to nominate?
I want to nominate Bob Morris for the vice chair seat.
Second?
Board Member McDermott,
Yes.
Board Member Gattens.
Yes.
Chairman Walsh.
Yes. We're going to make the switch.
Is that what Morris gets for not being here?
Good evening. The January 2025 meeting of the City of Scranton Zoning Hearing Board will now come to order. Will the zoning officer please take a roll?
Board Member Walsh,
Here.
Board Member Gattens,
Here.
Chairman McDermott.
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In accordance with the Pennsylvania Sunshine Law, this board shall render a decision on each case either at the end of each hearing or within 45 days of the hearing. If you are to give testimony in a case, please come to the podium, raise your right hand, and wait to be sworn in. After being sworn in, state your name and address, then proceed with your testimony. Also, anyone giving testimony who does not become a party to the case may obtain a written decision from the zoning office. I also have two announcements of law. If you are granted a variance or a special exception, you must wait 30 days from the date of our decision to obtain the necessary permits to start work. However, you may obtain permits sooner by signing a waiver that any work done during that 30-day period is at your own risk. A favorable decision by this board shall expire 12 months from the date of said authorization in accordance with Article 10.3C of the zoning ordinance. If you fail to obtain the necessary permits or do not comply with any or all conditions of said authorization, you must seek an extension. Are there any remarks from the board?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Abraham, can you attest to the postings?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Can you call the first case?
The first case we have for today is Kenneth Hussey seeks interpretation to recognize use as a mixed use to allow short-term rentals and host events at 1005 Vine Street, R-9 zone. Will you please step up?
Yes, I do.
Good afternoon, or good evening now. My name is Matt Barrett. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Mr. McDermott. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Your good friend, Mr. Gattens, nominated you as chair. So there's multiple issues here tonight, and to the extent the application needs to be amended, I'd just like to make sure we cover multiple bases. First of all, are you all familiar with the property? Okay, I have photographs, which I'm happy to share with you, and we'll do as we go through. But it's a very ornate house that sits at Vine and Quincy, all right? And one thing I would point out to the board is that a lot of homes in the hill section on the corner go from corner to alley, like go the full length, if you will. This one only goes half, and then there's another lot behind it. Also, it's kind of unique in that it's situated across from the institutional use, which is University of Scranton, so there's not a lot of homes in that area. There are some that are on Quincy, of course, and the thing that would be important in that respect is that there's a lot of permit parking in that area, because I think parking will be an issue as it traditionally is with the board. One thing I would ask is, if the board is inclined, I mean, I'll defer to the board, I'm curious to know if anybody here is in opposition to it, because if so, I'd like to address concerns that they may have, but I don't know if any neighbors are here or anybody's opposed. So I don't know if you'd be willing to find that out. Normally, you would wait till we get done and see if anybody's in opposition.
Is there anyone else here to give testimony for Vine Street? Okay, there's one.
With regards to this property?
Yeah, we didn't get notice, but we're actually building right next door in the school area.
Which property, Alex?
1025 Walsh Street.
I think you should present your case, and then
Okay.
I think we should do it yeah.
Okay. All right, so you've been sworn. Would you state your name, please?
Kenneth Hussey?
And Mr. Hussey, are you the owner of the property at the corner of Vine and Quincy?
Yes.
All right, and can you tell me, let's do this a little bit cleanly as best we can. You've been the owner of the property since 2019?
Yes.
And prior to that, how long have you been associated with the property?
Since 2019?
Well, keep your voice up.
Since 2019.
Did you have a relationship with the prior owner?
Not much, no.
Okay, so with regards to the prior owner, who was the prior owner?
Father Mark Rossetti, who passed away.
Were you familiar with Father Rossetti?
Yes.
All right, and with regards to Father Rossetti, prior to you taking ownership, had that property hosted events, gatherings, fundraisers? And if so, could you describe for the board what kind of events were held there?
A lot of art events, including things like concerts. They did theatrical performances in the house, kind of use it as a performance venue. He was a priest. He had a lot of different services there. And he was also a musician, so he had different types of events. And then it's on YouTube, a lot of the events that were there that go back 2015 or so.
And for these events, would people be invited into the home for the event itself?
Yes, because a lot of people came from New York and they performed, so you may have an opera singer. Actually, we still have the same opera singers that might sing there and perform, and yeah, a lot of that.
And then with regards to, were there occasions where these performers would actually spend the night or weekend when the events were held?
Yeah, they would need to because they couldn't go back to New York, so they would stay there usually.
Now, I'll show you what we'll mark collectively as, well, first of all, I'll ask, the application itself has already been marked and will be made part of the record, I assume?
Yes.
Okay. So with regards to these photographs, we'll mark these as applicant number 2, and I'll ask you, and there's 7 photographs here, do these depict the home and the surrounding block and neighborhood where your property is situated?
Yes.
Now, behind you, there is a parking lot, correct?
Correct.
And that is owned by the University of Scranton?
I believe so.
And with regards to past the alley, so it goes your home, the parking lot, the alley, and then I think it's Temple Beth Shalom, I think, right, correct?
That's correct.
So your property does not extend to the alley itself?
No, it doesn't.
The application seeks short-term rental. Can you tell the board what it is you intend to do as far as short-term rental, what you envision would be a short-term rental?
Usually, a guest will stay. They would book via Verbo or Airbnb. So one person would book it, and maybe their family would come. Maybe they want, it could be a student's family, and they would want to stay in one location, not be separate, and or they would perhaps come to an event at downtown Scranton, like one of the festivals. I've had that. And they would stay the night. Usually it's 2 nights, and sometimes I'm there, sometimes I'm not.
And is this your permanent home?
Yeah, I stay there probably about 75, 80% of the time.
But you do at times offer the property for rent while you are there and at times when you are not there.
That is correct.
And let's be clear about this because there's no hiding it. Do you have any off-street parking?
I have none.
All right. With regards to the parking in that area on Quincy, that's permitted parking?
That's permit parking, yes.
And you have a permit and a guest permit for that?
That's correct.
Is it your understanding that you can get 8 guest permits?
No.
With regards to Vine Street, that's not permitted parking, correct?
Correct.
Across the street from you, between the corner and the alley, there's only one structure, I believe?
Yes.
And then behind that, there's a parking lot, again, I think owned by the University of Scranton.
Correct.
And then catty-cornered from you is a parking lot owned by the University of Scranton.
Correct.
I've marked these as, well, I have them to hand up as applicant. I marked them afterwards, but there's 7 photographs that depict the subject property. So, the violation that was issued is a occupancy permit, I think? Am I correct about that?
Yes.
All right. And this is, I want to emphasize, this is your home, correct?
Yes.
All right. And did you seek an occupancy permit for your home?
I think we closed during COVID, so I'm not sure.
Well, I'll tell you, I have a home in the city of Scranton. I don't know if I have a certificate of occupancy, but have you ever applied for a certificate of occupancy to your knowledge?
No.
All right. I have no other questions for the witness at this time.
Just so the board knows, this is really 3 things, but the most important is that it's really under R9 zone, which this is in. Both the recreational facility and the short-term rentals are allowed as special exceptions. So that would be under the 6.3 of our new code. However, the lack of parking would need a variance. So it's kind of like a hybrid here.
And I'd like to address that because I suspect the board is going to have concerns about that. So I've been here plenty of times and I know that parking is an issue. But when you think about a variance, right, is there something unique about this property that makes it so that you can't have parking? And the reality is multiple. One, if you look at the photographs I provided you, from a topography standpoint, there's no way to climb that wall from Vine Street. Secondly, the property behind it is owned by another property owner who uses it for a parking lot. Additionally, to the extent the board is concerned about parking, why are we normally concerned about parking? Well, we're concerned about the impact on other neighbors and where are people going to park. In this situation, to the extent neighbors are concerned, there's permit parking on Quincy. So if 8 people were to show up with 8 cars to this property, they can't park on Quincy because if they do, they'll be ticketed and because you need a permit. If they park on Vine, that's not that big of an impact because it's not really an occupied street in that area, meaning it's one apartment house and then primarily University of Scranton housing around it, and the parking lot and the temple behind it over on Clay Avenue. So from a parking perspective, and yes, it might be an inconvenience for the people coming to use the property to find parking. They're not going to be assured parking, but they can't really negatively impact the neighbors because those neighbors are going to be protected by the permit parking on Quincy. So I'd like to point that out to the board with regards to the parking issues.
Well, for clarity, are you coming for a variance or a special exception? Special exception
Fair.
required.
Yeah, and that's why I said we might need to amend it because there are multiple things here. From the testimony, I'd also like to ask that it be amended or recognize that there's a strong argument that there's a non-conforming use here, that the use was going on before ownership in 2019, that this new ordinance that requires 8 parking spots went into effect in 2024. So to the extent, number one, the prior owner was having events there, that might constitute a non-conforming use, to the extent the property owner was using it in 2019 without the need for 8 parking spots because the old ordinance didn't address short-term rentals. And I know the board went through this, and Mr. Penetar would be familiar with the Rayner case. The Rayner case addressed, you know, that old ordinance talked about a bed and breakfast, but really didn't address this new economy of short-term rentals. And so with regards to this new requirement of parking, it seems to me that there's a pre-existing use there and/or a non-conforming use. And so to the extent the application and the evidence supports that, I ask that the application be amended to include that.
You want to amend it to be a special exception?
I'll include it to be recognized as a non-conforming use. I'll amend it to be a special exception with the request for the variance on the parking. And then I don't know how often the board has dealt with this with the new ordinance, but some interpretation with regards to the recreational center, the civic center, and the short-term rental and the impact of the new ordinance on bedrooms. Another thing that I'd like to point out, the new ordinance talks about short-term rentals, and it defines it as being a short-term rental with or without overnight accommodation. So it envisions a circumstance in which someone could provide a short-term rental, a movie shoot, a gathering, a luncheon, a something that doesn't involve overnight accommodations. And yet, the parking requirement ties the parking requirement to the amount of bedrooms that are offered. So I think there's a bit of a, I'd say there's probably something that needs to be revisited there, but regardless, for the property owner, it's to be interpreted as broadly as it can be, and that's what the Rayner case said as well, that where you have this anomaly, a short-term rental without a bedroom offering seemingly requires no parking, and then to the extent that it requires parking, we're asking for a variance. So I'm sorry to gum it all up with all these different legal arguments,
That's okay.
but I want you to be aware where
We've
we're
been
coming
dealing
from.
with these for a little bit.
And then, Dan, I see on here also is, it says that they're running a restaurant out of here too, is that what?
Yeah, I mean, I can only represent to you, and I'm happy to ask the applicant.
Let us ask some questions here first, and we'll come back to what your concerns are there. And what's your name again? I'm sorry.
Kenneth Hussey.
Mr. Hussey. When you have your events there, how many attendees do you usually have?
35, 40 is the top.
Okay. And so the word parking comes right in my mind right there, so we'll skip over that. Do you charge for people to come to the event? Is there a
Yeah,
fee?
sometimes we do, sometimes they're public events.
Okay. You're overnight, so when your performers stay overnight, you charge them for to stay overnight?
Yes,
Okay. And if attendees want to stay overnight, they pay?
yes,
And when there's no performances going on, and I want to rent it because I have a son or a daughter at the University of Scranton, that's a rental as well?
yes.
Okay. What are your hours when you have events?
Can you repeat that?
What are your, I'm sorry, I should lean forward. What are your hours when you have your events? Like if you have a concert or something like that?
Usually it's about 2 to 3 hours.
No, what time would it start? What time would
Oh,
it end?
maybe 6 o'clock and go to maybe 8 o'clock.
Okay. So you answer the last one. So you say this has been going on before you took over the building?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. And I'm sure they're going on, probably, which a lot of them were going on without the city's knowledge that they were even going on at that time. But that's neither here nor there with this case. And I'll be straightforward, and Mr. Barrett hit the nail on the head, the parking. When you tell me 35 people coming to it, so you're looking at maybe 17 cars, we'll cut it in half, 2 in a car. That's an awful lot coming into that area with no parking. And with the variance, we can't, to give a variance, we can't give a property, whether it's a rental home or anything like that, the variance would allow for on-street parking, and I'm sure, Attorney Barrett, you know that from the past. And that's what you're asking us to do. And you have a beautiful house, beautiful building. You know, I admired it when I was over there. I really took my time and walked around it because it is unique. But the unique part goes down the drain that there's no parking there. I was hoping that maybe the university would let you use their parking lot or something, but I think we know better that's ever happening. That's all the question I have for right now. I don't know if anybody else has anything.
Yeah, I just want to note about the permit parking. I don't believe it's 24 hours a day,
Yes, it is.
the permit parking. I think it cuts off at 7 or 8 o'clock at night.
till 7 o'clock the next morning.
Not in the Hill.
It's not in the Hill? It's 24 hours?
Yeah, it's 24 hours, yeah.
24
hours. Yeah. I think it was all over 24 hours.
No. Because I live in permit parking, and it stops at 8 o'clock, I believe. Yeah, it's not 24 hours. So that's what I'm wondering. You said you're from 6 to 8, but I'm sure people stay after 8 o'clock. Well, they'll be staying there the night.
I don't know if there's a way to get clarification on that. The applicant's position is, and I believe, I don't want to misrepresent it to you, I can't tell you affirmatively, but we believe that it's permitted parking at all times, but you can imagine in that area, it's a problem that if it were not 24 hours,
Yeah, because right now, when we were up there, the university wasn't in session yet.
Right.
So there's plenty of empty spots, parking lot, street
Right.
parking.
yep.
So did you ever approach the university about getting,
Yes, I did.
leasing some spots of, because they have a large lot across the street from your property?
Yes, so what they said was, we couldn't put it in writing, but you could park there.
Wow.
And I just want to get this up record with regards to Mr. Gatten's question. Have there been times when you've actually been awarded grants by the city to have events there?
Yeah, I got a grant last week, actually, from the county.
Okay. And with regards to the activity there, as to what was known or not known, it certainly wasn't a secret. The events were held to the public, and in fact, you could see them on YouTube. I don't know if anybody saw them or not, but it's never been hidden as to what's going on there. Is that fair?
Right, and a website and different things.
Well, I agree. I'm not casting.
No, I
you
just
know,
want
Yeah.
to clarify that on the record.
us.
So you didn't clarify about the restaurant. Are you running a restaurant in there also, or
Absolutely not.
you're not preparing any food in there?
No, I think I mentioned Walmart getting the crackers and cheese.
This is your main residence. Now, you said you're there 80, 85% of the time.
Yes.
Did I get correct?
That's correct.
Did you have another residence someplace?
Yes, I have another house
Can I ask you where?
in New York.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, anybody else like to give testimony on this case?
Step back for a second. Just go back. Yeah, just come this way.
For a point of order, Mr. Chairman, I just looked at the permit parking ordinance, and it does state it's 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Citywide? Citywide, yeah.
Thank you. Do you solemnly swear affirm the testimony you have to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. My name is Alex Itzkowitz, ITZ, KOW, I'm the vice president of Beth Shalom Academy. It's a school at 1025 Vine Street. When you're facing his house from Vine Street, you have Quincy on the left, Clay on the right, and we're the only building next to him on Vine Street. We didn't receive any notice in the mail. You know, I just got the list from Abraham, and I saw it there, but we didn't actually get served any notice about this hearing. I want to put that on the record. We're definitely not against any parties from 6 to 8, but we have a school between pre-K and high school. We have 90 students, about 20 teachers, and we are open from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, and then we have Sunday school from 11 to 2. As of right now, our teachers have a very hard time finding parking because, as we spoke about, Quincy and Clay are both 24-hour permit parking, and the city has not given our teachers any, they won't give us any parking permits because we're not residents in those houses. So our teachers are parking blocks away. So, you know, if we can work something out with parking for him, like we're not opposed to anything, we're just, you know, our teachers are fighting for spots as it is. That's my only concern. And then secondly, I would want some clarification. If he is renting it out to short-term rentals, is it multiple short-term rentals? Is he like partitioning them off, or is it one short-term rental, one family? You know, we do have a school with 90 kids, so we are, you know, concerned about who's coming in short-term, you know, next to us. That's it. Thank you. Any questions for them?
Good.
Mr. Hussey? He brought up a good question, and I had it down, and I forgot to ask you. How many, do you rent out a room, or you rent out the whole house, or how do you plan on doing this?
Right, so how it works is that one person goes online and they book the house. And so it's not partitioned into separate bedrooms. It's one family. I'm not sure how, there's a limit as to how many people can be there, but it's one person that books the entire house,
So
not
do you
different
set- Do
people.
you set the limit of how many people there are going to be?
Yes,
What's the limit?
it's 12.
12. Okay. That's all the questions I have.
So Abram, there's no history of this property as far as occupancy before this gentleman purchased?
From the data that I had available to me, there wasn't a CO for the short-term rentals or for the event hosting aspect. When it comes to the actual living space, like him treating it as a home, we usually don't issue certificate of occupancy
course not.
until unless it gets condemned. So that's why that's why most people wouldn't have a CO if they
No,
have
they're
a
not
house.
running a business out of their house.
Yeah, so that's what the letter was actually for. It was just in violation of no CO for the business side of things. But outside of that, the information that I was able to find does corroborate with what he was saying, was that a lot of the stuff that they were doing there, it seems that they've been doing that for a long time. The earliest record I can find was 2007, 8, around there, just showing that they've been running this type of thing there. But as to the details of it, there wasn't much details. I mean, the information was kind of, it wasn't there. But there was articles that we had and previous forms filled out on the location record for grants and other stuff of that
And then how did it
nature.
get brought to your attention to come to where we are today?
Someone made a complaint that they were doing illegal short-term rentals, Airbnb and Verbo there, and I looked into it and I saw that, well, technically, they didn't have a CO specifically or had the approval to have that type of business there, and on top of also hosting events. It was just, from what I saw, it was just a residential building, just from according to the records, showing that there wasn't anything there. So that's really all I have. That's really all I have that I was able to see in the records. There really wasn't much there. But
I think obviously if your neighbor isn't so concerned about him operating there, I mean, I think it's going to come down to parking. I think maybe you should try to table this matter and go back and try to get some parking somewhere, because for us to ask us to grant you for no parking at all, and we deny people constantly for no parking. I just think you should try to come up with some kind of game plan for some parking.
I request that we table the matter and give us an opportunity to pursue
It's a great idea.
accommodations. It is a great idea.
Great idea.
To see what we can do. All right? Thank you. Thank you for the board's consideration.
I'll make a motion that we table.
Second?
Board Member Walsh?
Yes.
Board Member Gattens?
Yes.
Chairman McDermott?
Yes.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Happy New Year to you all.
Take care
Have a
now.
good.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have Littman Stracer seeks variance to convert commercial space into residential apartment at 519 North Main Avenue. Will you please step up?
I do.
You may proceed.
Want me to state my name or no? Shawn Bingham, 215 South Decker Court, Scranton resident, Scranton contractor. We're here tonight, we were here a couple months ago for the property next door to ask for a 2-unit, and we were granted the 2-unit, and we were to put a parking lot. We bought a spot off a land bank in the back of our house. You remember that case? Right. So we also own the property to the right of that. So it's a 2-unit presently right now, 519 North Main Avenue. And, years back, there was a store on the first floor. We're asking if we can convert the store into an apartment, and the parking that we would have is we would add to the parking we have in the back that we bought off a land bank. 720 square foot. I think we meet the requirements for it. I don't know what else we would need to do.
Do you have a parking diagram or anything of this lot that you were using?
It's the parking lot in the back. Do you remember that we bought off the land bank? I don't, and I'll be honest with you, Mr. Walsh, we're still under construction with the property next door. Mr. Gattens, I believe you asked for 2 or 3 parking spots in the back for the one spot. So it's 35 by 150 feet or 125 feet.
Have they done anything to, Mr. Banger, to improve that lot yet? Have they?
All we did is to improve the lot, is like cut the grass down, keep it up to par. But we haven't done the blacktop yet for a number of reasons. Number one, we knew we were going to be coming to ask for, this apartment here. So instead of putting the 3 parking spots there, do it all at one time. Maybe possibly pave the whole, the right side of it so when they come in. Because we did find out after that the neighbors, there's a variance where the neighbors have a couple feet. Right, so they own a couple feet, so it's a little tricky, so before we went ahead. But it's under construction right now next door. So as soon as the weather breaks, we would put that, exactly what you guys asked for, in there.
What was the commercial space?
It was a store. I'll be honest with you, Mr. Walsh, I think it's well over 20 years. I don't even remember. Warburton's was next to it. And the only reason we believe it was a store, because it's all glass. That would be the bedroom, the way we have it set up, would be the bedroom for an egress to get them out of the house at that point, because it's a basement.
How many square feet, Mr. Banger?
It's 720 square foot. It's 36 by 20.
And there's a rear exit out
There's
there?
a rear exit out of the back, and there's a front exit, but the sides limit us because the sides go up like this. So we wouldn't be able to put an egress window in there, so we would put it in the front where there's already a window, modify the window, which when you walk in, you actually walk down to it. You know what I'm talking about? Yep. Remove that window, put the proper size window in there in order for them to
So are you going to eliminate the door that's there?
Well, no, that would be our front door, but the
Okay.
way we're going to do it, it'd be you walk into the front door, you go into the bedroom would be to the right, and then you go into the living room, and then the kitchen, bathroom.
So there's
one
a
bedroom.
front and rear entrance and...
Correct, right. And it would be a 1-bedroom, we wouldn't make a 2-bedroom out of it, and we already have 2 units there, so.
How many, was the other building we approved 2 units?
The other building was approved, it was a 1 unit, and you approved it for 2 units. We have it under construction, we have the permits and everything, that's on the go right now.
So we would need a total of 4
You
parking
would need
spots.
4, right. I actually think we would only need 2, because you only need 1 per unit, but he asked for 3, and we agreed to the 3, so we're gonna stick with the 3. So we would need to add 1, which we went up and we did a survey of the land, 35 by, I think it's 125 long.
Now, is this, just for clarity, Mr. Banger,
Sure.
is this the backyard of 515 that we're talking about?
So-
Or I know we put...
So 515 has a backyard that goes from here probably 30 feet, and then a fence that's coming down.
Yeah.
And then we have 125 feet.
Okay, that's the one you bought after that. That's what I just want to be sure.
That's Decker Court. That would be considered Decker Court. That was purchased from Land Bank.
Yep.
Right.
I remember you coming before us with that. Anybody else? Anybody here?
No.
Ask if anybody's here for testimony.
Is there anybody here to give testimony on this case?
Before we vote, I would just want to make the same stipulation that you're going to pave.
100%. Don't forget, it's
At least
contingent
4
upon us
spots.
to have that second unit next door. We don't pay that second unit doesn't go, so.
Yeah. So we're going to put the tie into Mr. Walsh's stipulation that the city refuses CO until this lot is paved on both units.
Perfect. We agree with that. We'll agree with that.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Board Member Walsh?
Yes.
Board Member Gattens?
Yes.
Chairman McDermott?
Yes.
3-0, you've been approved.
I have the next case too, I'm sorry.
Lucky us.
Okay, number 3 on the agenda today, we have Shawn Bingham seeks interpretation to show property never went in front of the board to be recognized as a 4-unit building at 1317 Dartmouth, R-10 zone.
Gentlemen, I think that the front of that I wanted to show that it never went. I was fully aware that it went. Mr. King and I have been speaking about this property. Our question is why did it come before the board? Does anybody know why?
Well, from our standpoint as a board, we just get the cases and we hear the cases.
Right, so
I mean-
is there any type of, and there's no disrespect here, one bit, we're just asking to clarify some things for ourselves. Is there, and Mr. Penetar, I believe this would be a question for you. Is there any due diligence that is done prior to somebody coming before the board? I've heard Mr. Gattens say a number of times, he said, why are you here? This is already what you need. Like, why are you here? This has been, it always will be, and it currently still is, a 4-unit property. We have taxes that's been paid. Rental registration, 4 units. I have pictures for the board. I have pictures for you all. No, I have pictures. Would you like to see them? There's mailboxes that are built right in the house, a 4-unit. I mean, it's uncanny that we're even here. So here's the board. That's 1317. This is 1321.
Let's just do 1317 right now.
Right. So, and here's the 2024 tax bill as well. That's 2024 tax bill. Where else?
Continue not testifying.
Here, stand over here, come on. You want to swear in? No, our question is it's got 4 meters on the house, it's got 4 mailboxes built right in. It came before you, one of the neighbors who testified is not here tonight, or maybe he is, Mr. Dorenzo. He stated to the board that it would create a hardship putting parking in the back. There would never be parking in the back. It's grandfathered in, so you wouldn't need it. However, even if you did need it, we have a single-car garage in the back, we have a 3-car parking there, and we have a 2-car garage to the right of that. That's already there, grandfathered in. However, Mr. Dorenzo, who lives right across the street, parks his car. His picture's there of his car. He's saying it would impede and it would cause problems for people pulling in the alley, but it don't cause problems when he does. We're just wondering if the due diligence says, does anybody look at it? Because if
Mr. Bam,
Pardon?
let me ask a couple of questions.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Mr. King, we have anything, I don't remember why it came before us, I forget, I'll be honest with you.
I believe at the time there was another person that was looking to purchase it, and he wanted confirmation that he could have 4 units there, and we have no records, no occupancy permits, no building permits ever to convert that building into 4 units.
Originally, hang on.
The testimony from the neighbors is that it was converted to 4 units in the 80s and never occupied.
Right, if I remember correctly, the owner lived there, and he never...
Next door.
He lived in the other...
Okay, he lived at 21.
Yeah,
if I remember correctly, but he
This
never...
one, from what I understand, was never occupied.
Right.
But all due respect, Mr. Gattens, a vacancy or leaving a property vacant, leaving it vacant, does not bring it back to today's zone. At 44 minutes and 56 seconds into that hearing, I'm going to tell you what was said. Hold on one second. See, get your papers off here, dude. You got me all screwed up. 40, this is insane. 4654, Mr. King stated that the building was vacant for more than 6 months, which would automatically, he believed, the city ordinance would said it would revert back to today's zoning. That's not true. Non-conforming use would mean you have to show that you have no right or you want nothing more with that building. This man has paid all the taxes. He has kept up. We researched. We filed the right to know. Funny enough that we did it through the business office where we were told we can't get the right to know. Okay, we know why we can't get the right to know. We wanted this in writing, but instead we got it on audio. We have it on audio. So it says the property was never condemned. Speaking to Mr. King, I advised that the county has it listed as 4 units. He said he didn't care what the county had it listed at. I went to LIPS today. You know what they said? When I put in an application for a permit, the first thing they check is the county records, what it's listed as. Is that how it goes? I'm not sure. I don't work for the city. It's not?
No.
Okay,
No.
so how does it go?
We go look at our records and see what we have.
You look. So if the county says you have a list,
The county lists 1 to 4.
right?
Or 4 or more. They don't say how many units.
And we're
are there.
4.
So it could have been 2, could have been 3, could have been 1.
Obviously, somebody in the city that said that there's no record of it didn't look too hard. We didn't look too hard at all. We found it. We found the record. I mean, here, we found the record. It's 4 units and it's registered as such. There you go. It's 2018. Can we also ask a question to the board? Who charges the 4 garbage fees, the county or the city?
City?
City, well, guess what we have here? We have 4 garbage fees that we've been paying religiously, or Mr. Kaplan's been paying, and now we've been paying them as well. We just gave them to you. Look on the tax thing. You gotta get your papers up there, dude. You got me all twisted up here. No, seriously. Step over here a little bit. Yeah, step over there a little bit. I had all this in order, bro.
So, Mr. Bingham, I have a question for you while you're looking
Sure.
through your papers there.
Go ahead.
Are you disputing the fact, though, that it was empty all those years? Are you saying anyone lived in them apartments?
No, we're agreeing that it was vacant.
Okay.
But Mr. Gattens, all due respect, if I own 5 properties, 3 unit, 3 unit, 3 unit, 3 unit, and I live in one of the 12 units, I hate people. I don't want to rent to nobody. That does not give the city or any of its people the right to come in and condemn our house, nonconformity or not. Nonconformity would mean this, that I am showing you that I don't care about the property. We care about the property. We care about it. We paid our taxes, we paid our trash bill, we have 4 meters on the house, we have 4 mailboxes. Just because I don't want to rent it, don't mean that you can come in and condemn my house. It's as simple as that. So it's never been condemned.
The house wasn't condemned, right?
That's right, so that means it never goes.
No, you're saying that it was condemned. That's why I wanted to
That
clarify.
means it doesn't come back to today's thing. Nonconformity would mean that. I have that too. Nonconformity would mean that. Not because a vacancy doesn't create that.
Well, who's at fault here? I'm just going.
Who's at fault?
No, let me finish my question.
Sure.
If this gentleman, over the years, that house sat vacant, and he chose to pay the garbage fee.
Correct.
That's on him.
That's
He
right.
could file back to the city and get some of that money back, but that's not I'm not sticking up for the city. I think you know better. But he chose to pay that bill. The city was willing to take it until he went down and filled out whatever paperwork he had to say that the place were empty, proved that there's no electric use in that building. They wouldn't have charged him anymore.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's on him.
Right, so now let me give you my answer to that, right? Correct, it's on him. However, it's his right, it's God-given right to not rent to nobody. It's not the city's right to say, hey, you're back to today's zoning. Only in the, you know what nonconformity is, Mr. King? Tell me what nonconformity means.
I'll be glad to.
Sure.
Nonconforming means it exists legally.
Legally.
And the burden of proof to prove that it legally existed as a 4-unit apartment house is on the person asserting that.
So would you agree that if we paid our taxes, paid our trash bill, kept up the property, kept up the property, never had a ticket on that property for a living violation, would you say that that's living up to our obligations of having that 4-unit? Yes or no?
No.
No, what would you call it?
You have to show that it legally exists at a 4-unit.
I did.
The testimony, as Mr. Gattens said, he shouldn't have been paying those 4, but if they're vacant.
It's registered as a 4-unit, Mr. King.
It's not registered now.
Yes, it was. You said you couldn't find it.
I didn't say I couldn't find
You
anything.
just said, it on record.
Yeah.
You just said we've not found one thing on record. You said that. Did he not say that? Did he say we did not find one thing on record? Now this is taped. I mean, it's taped. He said it.
I get
Yeah,
it.
you heard what he said.
I know it's taped, so.
What our point is this, so nobody's at fault. How about that? Nobody's at fault. However, the reality of it is this thing should have never been brought before this board. It's as simple as that. It was a 4-unit, then it's a 4-unit now. It's
When's
still-
then? Mr. Bingham, when's then?
Then, 1905, when it was built.
So if I went onto the county's website and looked
Yeah.
up that house, it's going to be listed as a 4-unit.
Go ahead and...
No, I'm not going to do it now. I'm just asking you a
Mr. King
question.
could do that. He's got the book.
You know?
Yeah, he's got the book. Why
It
don't-
won't be listed as a 4-unit.
It's not-
It'll be listed as
let
one
me-
of
let me
That's
insert.
That's how the county.
Let me insert a little bit here. The county website has it either 1 to 4
Yeah.
or more than 4. There's no 1, 2, 3, or 4. It's 1 to 4. So that's not helping us one way or another.
But Dan, does it also say
But
multi-dwelling?
again, 2 is multi, 3
Right.
is multi, 4 is multi.
Right, okay.
So that's not really telling us anything. And let's assume that this has been used as 4 units and it was grandfathered in. Then the question becomes, was it abandoned? Okay, our ordinance creates a presumption of abandonment if the use was discontinued or abandoned for 12 months or longer. Okay? That's a presumption. Can that presumption be overturned? Yes, it can. And Mr. Bingham is arguing that that presumption is overturned because they've continued to pay for garbage fees, et cetera, et cetera. So there's that, he's saying that overcomes the intent to abandon. That's kind of what the courts have decided over the years, is if you could show that there's no abandonment, and he can overcome the presumption of abandonment in our ordinance, then that, again, it's a close call, but the courts historically have said it's not abandoned.
Right.
And I would agree with that. If they came in with evidence that said, here, there was 4 tenants living here, here's their 4 electric bills, but the testimony is no one ever lived there, and that it was converted from 2 to 4 without any permits.
It was never converted. It was never converted.
Well, it was in the 80s.
The PPL boxes are so old. Your great-grandfather might have been the one putting them on the house. How's it converted? A conversion would be this, if we just did it today and got caught. Kind of like the Carlisle house over on Jefferson Street, when it got converted to 7 units from 1. Yeah, that's kind of what we're talking about. But we're not talking about that here tonight. Mr. Penetar, I appreciate your honesty there, sir. And that is the fact right there. The courts are recognizing the fact that we did not, although Mr. King believes that we did not show that we had no intent of condemn or not having no conformity use there, the courts are favoring the fact that they're right. They've been paying, the guy paid the taxes. He didn't want to
Let's stop there. The tax is on the size of the building.
Right.
Not if it's 6, 10, or 50 units.
Trash bags, and the city got sued 1,000 times over for, and we were paying 4 trash bags.
Yeah.
So whose fault is that? Is that our fault too?
No, that was Mr. Kaplan's fault for not coming in and saying.
He's coming up here, right? Where we were given permits for a 4-unit house. It's unbelievable. So is it my office that screwed up? I'm not too sure about that.
Well, the other thing is, Mr. Kaplan, the former owner, came in 2021, seeking our approval, 2021.
That's right.
Seeking the board's approval to convert from 2 to 4 units.
No, because you told them it was only 2 units.
And the board,
You told the lawyer it was
and the
only 2
board
units.
denied it.
You told the lawyer that. So when he wanted to sell the property to Monclar, you told him it was only 2 units. At that point, he agreed with the non-conformity, because guess what? The guy was 89 years old.
But he agreed to it.
No, he didn't agree. The lawyer came in. He wasn't here.
Well, that was, that was his
here.
representative, though, and the representative that he hired agreed to it.
Listen, when you're given false information, you're going to agree with it. Mr. Gattens, all due respect, I'm not
All
trying to
due respect,
disrespect
Mr. Bingham.
anybody. No.
I get it. We go by what's put in front of us.
That's, look, I want to keep the horse in front of the cart. I do. I certainly do, by all means. And here's what it comes down to. The courts are favoring the fact that we can show that there is no abandonment to this property through Mr. Kaplan and through the owner of it right now. There's just none. We paid 2024.
Is this, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Off this page a little bit. Is this a new owner from the last time it was here?
Yes.
So he sold?
Yes, he sold it, right.
Came to a new owner?
That's correct. And when I asked Mr. Negron, what should I put up on top of that, he said, I guess an interpretation, because I didn't want to come for a variance or a special exception. We weren't looking for that. We're looking for what's right, and what's right is what Mr. Penetar just alluded to.
We're not arguing with you.
Right. Arguably.
No, I said we're not arguing with you.
No, arguably he's right, I'm saying.
No, I said we're not arguing.
Listen,
Mr. Bingham.
It's tough. It's tough.
Let's take a breath.
Yeah,
I'm saying we're not arguing with you on this board.
No, I just wonder, Mr. Gattens, all due respect, I respect every one of you guys on that board up there, and you know that. I come here with full respect. I respect Mr.
And you get it back.
I do, and I do. You reciprocate it. I do. However, in a case like this, where's the due diligence where somebody says, hey, is this a 4-unit? Look into it a little bit. Nobody looks into it. You just get in front of you, boom, and then the people who don't know, they walk away and they say, oh, okay, that's what it must be. Well, it's not. And then when you have somebody come up and argue and give a good argument to it, you got to look at it like that. That's all I'm saying.
I think we do. I think this board does a pretty good job.
You're more than fair with us. I know that.
All right, let's see if there's anyone else.
Yeah, is there anybody else that'd like to give testimony?
Yeah, just one thing. So they bought this from Mr. Kaplan. Mr. Kaplan was aware that he was not allowed to use it as 4 units. He had the opportunity to appeal that. He did not. It became a final order. For us, the city, we're not allowed to, we can't just turn around and say, oh yeah, you're right, it's 4. It's 2 units. And secondly, Mr. Bingham just said he's here asking for an interpretation. I think that's beyond the board. The board could grant a variance or a special exception. I don't think the board could give Mr. Bingham advice.
No, the interpretation would be whether it was grandfathered in as 4 units. That's the interpretation. Was it grandfathered in as 4 units?
Okay.
Okay, sir, can you please raise your hand? Thank you, sir. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
My name's John Novak, Attorney John Novak. I'm here in an informal capacity on behalf of Frank Dorenzo, who had a knee surgery, so he couldn't join us for this lively discussion. It's JOHNNOVAK. To answer the question with regards to due diligence, and I do feel for Mr. Bingham and his representative who now own the property. I've been before the board, and it does seem that there are instances where potential buyers purchase property without necessarily doing their own due diligence to figure out whether a property is a 2-unit or a 4-unit. There's been certainly instances where clients that we represent, even through closings or right up to the closing event, where they think they're purchasing a 3-unit or 4-unit, you do the necessary due diligence and call the city, and it's actually, hey, this is only a legal 2-unit. You're going to have to go in front of the board for a variance. So I do feel the pain there, but with regards to this property, I'm just going to read Frank's letter, which I believe copies may have been already provided to you, but just for edification. The neighborhood in question is zoned R10, which was formerly R2. It was constructed, this property, 1317 Dartmouth, as a double-unit home. The property was converted to 4-unit apartments by the previous owner, Harold Kaplan. Much of this has already been stated. Sometime prior to 1982, and without the zoning approval and without the required building permits. The property has never been occupied, and on my little sheet, that's all capitalized. Frank is a resident, has been a resident of that property, or of that street for pretty much his whole life. And so that has not been occupied as a 4-unit since 1982, which is about 42 years. Mr. Kaplan, who's now deceased, appeared before this board and sought a variance, as stated by Attorney Penetar, to convert the property from a 2-unit home to 4 units. This request for a variance was denied unanimously by the zoning hearing board, and there, to the packets, which I believe you all have, there's findings of fact that the board, presented. I don't think that the facts of that case are particularly dissimilar here. I think that they're very similar, and the board in that instance has already found that it was a 2-unit and had denied that variance. 1317 Dartmouth building is situated on a 40 by 125 lot and can't support the required off-street parking for 4 dwelling units. And the neighborhood is predominantly older single-family and dual occupancy buildings. And attached to the packet, you've got a neighborhood properties inventory, which lists what the makeup of those units on Dartmouth Street are. And that is what I've got. But with regards to the due diligence question, I think it's on the buyer. Unfortunately, if he's been paying the taxes, maybe he's owed some money back, but it's a 2-unit. Thank you.
A little rebuttal on that. We did do our due diligence. We went to the tax office. I don't know how Attorney Novak proceeds for his clients, but that's what an attorney does. He goes to the tax office, he finds out how many units they got, whether the county says 1 or 4. City of Scranton had it listed as 4. We have a permit coming for 1321, 4 units. You know what they did? As soon as Lorenzo found out in the back, because Joanne works up in the business office, as soon as they found out they were doing work, bang! The permits were pulled, they were rescinded by Mr. King and Mr. Oleski. But however, it had to go through Mr. King's office at first.
Well, let's deal with one case at a
Okay,
time.
well, here's the deal. Okay, here's the deal. I have the pictures where he said, you won't get the parking in there. I can prove we could have parking there, 100%.
So the width of the property is 40 feet.
Here's the problem. Can I show you the pictures? You have them up there?
Yes or no, with 40 feet, that's all I'm asking.
There's two properties. I don't know, so it's 40 and 40, that'd be 80 feet. Correct.
There's only one property right
Right, so 80 feet.
That's 40.
Okay. Hold on, yeah. Are you done? Are you done?
Yeah, I just want.
Go, do you want to say, I don't know what you want to say?
Hi, I was sworn in, do I swear myself in again? I represent the ownership, I'm the property manager of this property that we're talking about.
Can you spell your last name again?
Sure, ITZ, KOW-ITZ. A couple of things, I do find there's a conflict of interest that Mr. Novak was representing the buyer in 2021, and now he's representing the opposition at this hearing.
Representing the buyer in 2021? Yeah, that was before.
Yeah, it was before.
No, I mean, right now, we're talking
Yeah.
17.
Right, but, so I'm just saying, he represents Mr. Clark, and now he's representing this other guy. It's a little bit interesting. We did our due diligence when we bought the property. We did a title search, and we asked for the tax records for the past 3 years. And the tax records, again, show the 4 refuse bills. The first thing, whenever you apply for a permit in the city of Scranton, Abraham can tell you this, is they always check the refuse bills. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, we do check
Right.
the refuse bills.
Right. And if there's 4 refuse bills, it's a 4-unit. Number 2 is we also got an application from 2018, because up until this past year, the rental registration was hit or miss. Now that Rob's in charge, it's pretty set in place. So we did our due diligence. We got a 2018 rental registration for 4 units listed as vacant. So just because somebody came in 2021, the owner was not here himself, somebody else came. You can look at the YouTube video. So again, so we just want to then interpret.
The owner's not here tonight for this property. I'm sorry, the owner's not here tonight for the property either, are they?
No.
Okay, so it's the same thing, you represent, he had a representative that time as well, which he can do.
It was very.
What I'm saying is, they had the right to have a representative, just like your owner has a right to representative.
Right, but
So there's nothing wrong what was done with
They
that
were
lawyer.
given,
You're representing them that night.
what I'm saying is that the representative that came with the buyer, they had misinformation.
According to you.
No, according to the city records, because they're paying for refuse bills. And they have a rental registration for 4 units.
Look, I'm not going to get an argument back and forth. We never do this. But in the same respect, Mr. Kaplan hired that representative to represent him, so that's what he got that night. Whether it's correct or incorrect, that's what he got.
Is there anybody else to give testimony?
It's just a little silly, but I didn't represent Moshe Clark. I know I have to just clear that up on the record. Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate that. Sit down. Unbelievable. Mr. Gattens, all due respect to this whole thing, the thing should have never came before the board in 2021. Mr. Penetar nailed it right on the head. I understand you can't overturn this today. I understand, 100%. But the fact of the matter is, it's going to be brought up to the Lackawanna County Courts. We're going to bring it to the judge, and the judge is going to see the same thing that Mr. Penetar just said, and we're going to get the minutes, what Mr. King said too in the minutes. There were, you know, the nonconformity. We showed that he believes we did not show enough that it's not conformity. We showed enough. We did our due diligence.
And that's...
We buy houses all the time. We did our due diligence.
Yeah. Up here.
Yeah.
And that's your right, and exercise your right to do it.
Well, Mr. Novak alluded to the fact that, you know, I feel bad. It's a burden on the owner. They should have done their due diligence. How does he know we didn't do it? We just proved to you guys that we did do our due diligence. We have proved beyond a reasonable doubt that we've done our homework. And we have proved irrefutable evidence that that place was 4 units, and I don't care when it was converted, in 1982, Mr. Dorenzo, and there was no proper permits. Could you find the permits from 1982, Mr. King? You can't find the permits from 2023.
Get that gavel. Let's get this under control.
Call it.
All right.
Okay, if there's no more testimony,
Dan, are we voting on anything on this?
What sort of vote?
Stop.
I'm sorry.
Are we voting on anything on this? It's an interpretation?
Whether it's grandfathered in or not. Whether it's grandfathered in or not. That's the interpretation.
Well, I'm going to make a motion to the rest of the board that we hold off our vote list until we get some more information on this. I'm not satisfied with it before us right now.
Well, where are you going to get it?
I don't know. I just...
Unfortunately, Mr. Bingham, I think that You're right, this is for a court to decide. Unfortunately,
But how did it get to the board?
We don't know. That's
I mean, Mr. Penetar,
There's arguments on both sides here, okay? So the court may end up having to decide this.
I appreciate it.
Because
I appreciate it.
there are arguments on both sides.
You know,
There's arguments that it was a 4-unit, there's arguments that it was not a 4-unit.
kicking the butt for us to
So-
come back in front of you and say we're asking for a variance to turn a 2-unit into a 4-unit, because then our argument right now is moot with nothing. It was stupid that we even came for that. It's not, we're arguing that it was 4 and it's gonna be 4, it's now 4 and it's gonna continue to be 4. That's our argument, whether it got written in the law and how it got written into law. We know what happened. You know, Mr. Drenzo had knee surgery. Tell me, hope he recovers quickly.
easy. I'll make a motion.
Need a second?
Second?
I'm sorry. We're voting yes or no if it was grandfather or not grandfather, right?
Correct.
I'm going to vote no.
I'm going to vote no, because I like to see, I hate to say it, I like to see this go to court and get ironed out once and for all. So I'm going to vote no.
No.
Can we get the name of the stenographer that we can get the minutes off her?
I'm sure.
It's Sergeant's court recording.
What was it?
It's Sergeant's court recording. I can
Sergeant
give you a
court recording?
Abraham can get that too.
Yeah,
Mr. Bingham.
they wouldn't get us the last ones. So, I mean, we're still.
We'll make sure you get it.
By the vote of
Don't go far.
3-0, you've been denied.
You have the other one, right?
No, it's the last, I think, is it?
We're pushing it now. Is it the
Attorney
same people?
Campolito, we're up.
All right.
You're up. He's gone now. Yeah.
Next on the agenda, we have Dartmouth EFH LLC seeks variance to recognize the building as a 4-unit residential at 1321 Dartmouth Street, R-10. Will you please step up?
Good evening, gentlemen. My name's Joe Campolito. I represent the applicant, Dartmouth EHF LLC, and we are next to this property at 1321 Dartmouth.
Okay, thanks.
Me.
So similar in some respects to Mr. Bingham's argument, this property has been for quite some time, I don't know the exact date, it looks like from its inception, set up as a 4-unit building. Ingress and egress, as you can see in the pictures, both in front and back. Again, as you can see in the pictures, each unit has its own bathroom, has its own kitchen, has its own living space. Similar, this property has a gas hookup that had multiple tie-offs to the meter and 6 actual electrical boxes. The owner, Mr. Kaplan, he actually resided in this unit, in this building at 1321. One of the units, his unit, actually had a second bedroom that utilized the upstairs of the property. So just to kind of cut to the chase, as Attorney Penetar set forth, the whole argument here is whether or not the non-conforming use was abandoned. It clearly existed. There's enough documentation to show, with taxes being paid, with applications being made for residential rental, as well as just an actual looking at the property. It is a 4-unit, set up as a 4-unit structure. The intent to abandon is what needs to be looked at, okay? And as Attorney Penetar set forth, that is something that the courts look at. It's not whether you paid taxes, whether you paid a garbage fee, whether or not you submitted a residential rental form. It's the actual intent to abandon a unit, or a nonconforming use in this case. Whether it was converted from a 4 to a 2, whether it was raised, whether it was struck by fire and not rebuilt to a 4-unit, whether somebody took the place and changed it to show an actual intent to abandon the nonconforming use. This property was actually even worked on by the owner. He remodeled some of the 4 units before my clients even came along. It was marketed as a 4-unit structure. So again, I understand the whole idea of due diligence, and I understand that at times somebody may buy something and they think it's a pig and it actually turns out to be a cow. I get it. But again, we have to look at the owner's intent. If it was marketed as a 4-unit structure, it was clearly the owner's intent to continue it as a 4-unit multifamily structure. Looking at this property, it's not going to change anything. We're not looking to change the footprint. We're not looking to convert it to anything. It already exists as a 4-unit. There's several, if you look at the last sheet, there's several multifamily units just in the 1300 block of Dartmouth. Forget the surrounding neighborhood. So again, what needs to be looked at is the actual intent. And I think clearly, at least with the property that I'm here to represent, it's clearly always been a 4-unit, and the intent was to keep it a 4-unit. My clients pulled permits, same thing, they were authorized, and then somehow stopped work. Which, again, I understand. Everybody wants to make sure they do the right thing. But as I'm sure Attorney Penetar can tell you, he's familiar with the TKO case. It was this board. Dan Penetar argued the case. The court clearly set forth that simply because somebody didn't fill out a rental registration doesn't show an intent to abandon. That's what needs to be looked at here. The intent, and there was clearly no intent to abandon the 4-unit. It's always existed that way. Nobody changed it. Nobody did anything. Like I said, it was marketed as a 4-unit. That's all that's operable here. It clearly was a non-conforming use. And just because the zoning, with all due respect to the zoning ordinance, I'm a zoning solicitor for Old Forge. We have a similar provision, as does every other municipality within the county of Lackawanna. There's some time frame, whether it's 6 months, whether it's 12 months, there's some time frame in there that says that you abandon your use if you don't move forward with it. And that's great, except the only problem with that is it's really only more of a deterrent to stop people from coming forward, because it's not even a presumption. It doesn't establish a presumption, because you have to look at the intent of the person that owns the property. You can't, the Commonwealth Court has been clear, you cannot take a person's right away to utilize their property unless they've exhibited a clear intent to abandon that use. And again, when somebody's marketing a property as a 4-unit, clearly there's no intent to abandon, and they did nothing else prior to that. Again, looking at these pictures, every unit, ingress, egress, kitchen, living space, bathroom, each independently can be resided in by at least one person, if not 2. There's also off-street parking, which again is the same non-conforming use. So if some point in time it went from one spot to two spots, it's the same one spot that exists for the same 4 units that existed at the time that there was only one parking spot. That's part of the exhibits also. Clearly 3 spots and a garage, 4 off-street parking. So again, I don't want to get everybody worked up, and I'm not really concerned about what taxes were paid and which garbage fees were paid, because those are all things to show whether or not there was a non-conforming use. The intent is clear, nothing's been changed. And it was marketed as a 4-unit property, sold as a 4-unit property. And all those other things are great that they exist, but again, it's actual intent. That's the driving factor, that's what's operable, and that's what the courts are going to rule on. That's what they've ruled on time and time again. Your solicitor can tell you that.
I have a couple of questions. Is that your property manager?
Yes.
Can we get him
He's
sworn in?
he's one of the members of the LLC that owns it.
Hi, how are you? Good. Let's get him sworn in.
Sure. So can you raise your right hand?
Sure.
Solemnly swear affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's state your name and spell it.
My name is Aaron Jacobs, Jacobs.
Why is there 6 meters? Just out of curiosity, there's 6 meters on that house.
It's a wonderful question. I'm not 100% sure why they did 6. I would have to assume that the way PPL originally wanted to meter each unit, they added 2 house meters. But I'm not a PPL technician, but that's how I would assume.
Are you going to convert it back to 4 meter bases? Or?
I'm going to have PPL have the 4 meter basis as it is. Whatever they need to use, they need to use. Whatever their, maybe whatever the use was.
Most of the time, there's 5. There's 5. There's one for the common area and one for each of the.
So if there was 2 common meters for some reason, whatever PPL tells me they need for the common area, I got to do.
That's okay, we'll pass it. Yeah, we got that. Yeah, that's my curiosity. Of course. As we know, a lot of times in this city, owners will subdivide an apartment down, so that was just a concern I had.
Not in the slightest, and we have absolutely no intention. I don't want to touch anything that is there. Is all I want to do is keep
Your
it.
parking here, and I appreciate you do have a parking plan.
Thank you.
The car that's parked next to the garage, what's the width of that from the garage over to the property line, looking at the rear of the property line to the right?
So I would say it's about, again, I'm estimating, I would say it's about 20 feet, but I don't have my reading glasses fully on. It's just, but it's estimated about 20 feet from my understanding.
So you're going to have, and that's a driveway to the right of that car for these cars that are parked behind the garage to get in?
Correct.
And is there enough room for I could see the one car nearest the garage, there's probably enough room, but the car that's farthest or close to the house, is there going to be room enough for that person to turn around?
There should be between that car and the house, I would say about another 25 feet, 25 to 30 feet.
Because the last thing we want to do, if we can help it, is have them backing out in that alley. I'd rather see them pull out just a close.
100%.
Did you plan on paving that area?
Yes.
Good. I don't know where I'm done.
Is there anybody here to give testimony on this case?
I just had a quick question. Is this the same owners as the other property?
No, I'm not.
They're not, completely separate?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, it's Attorney Novak on behalf of Frank Dorenzo, who's not able to be here due to a knee surgery. John-Novak. This board, you have, so in the interest of everyone's time and energy, because there's a room full of people here still, this is really a copy-paste, as far as we're concerned, of the prior situation. And if I may, from Mr. Dorenzo's letter, the neighborhood in question is zoned R10, formerly R2. 1321 Dartmouth property was constructed as a double-unit home. The property was converted to 4 apartments by the previous owner, Harold Kaplan, sometime prior to 1982 without zoning approval and without required building permits. Only one unit in this property was occupied by, has been occupied since 1982, and that was the owner, which was Mr. Kaplan. The other three were illegally converted apartments, which have remained vacant and unoccupied. On August 11th of 2021, Mr. Kaplan appeared before this board seeking a variance to convert the two-unit home to 4 units at 1321 Dartmouth. This request for variance was denied unanimously 5-0 by the zoning hearing board. The package which was provided to you guys includes those findings of facts and conclusions of law. 1321 Dartmouth building situated on a 40 by 125 lot. 1321 Dartmouth cannot support the required off-street parking for 4 dwelling units, and the neighborhood, like the other one, is predominantly older, single-family and dual occupancy dwellings, and attached to the package which was provided show the makeup of those neighborhood property inventories. Thanks.
Sorry, I don't know if this is out of turn, if I'm just allowed to ask questions. Again, I definitely understood and I heard that testimony very clearly. Just personally, from the people I know in that area and from what I've seen, there are multiple 3, 4, and multi-families out there. So I just, again, I'm not going to disagree with the testimony, but that should be an easily proven point.
Yeah, I mean,
How many multi-families are on that block? And I don't think it should be
the exhibit, again, are just in the 1300 block.
that one block, yeah.
And again, I don't know to what extent 1321 was previously.
Yeah, I don't have a record of that one.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't believe that 1321 was ever before this.
I don't have a record of it being before
So
us.
17 was.
Yeah, so I completely dispute.
I don't have that.
Completely dispute what Mr. Novak set forth. And again, I do not have any specific knowledge of whether or not these units were rented, but the work that was put into them, somebody spent a lot of money to do nothing with them, so I find it hard to believe that they were never utilized.
Also, if I may say, I bought it, again, I can't speak beforehand, but it was Mr. Kaplan's son that walked me.
You got to speak in the microphone.
I apologize. I just wanted to say, again, I can't speak for anything else, but it was Mr. Kaplan's son himself who walked me through it and told me this is his father, this is his stuff, this is what they're doing, and he said this is a 4-unit his father had. So I can't speak for what other people say. I can only tell you what was told to me.
So again, I specifically dispute that this was before the board, that there's any record of 1321. I dispute that it was ever requested to be converted from a 2-unit to a 4-unit, and I specifically dispute and disagree with the fact that it was ever illegally made a 4-unit.
Mr. Chairman, zoning case Z21-5, August 11th, 2021. I have the finding of facts in here. On or about July 8th, 2021, Harold Kaplan, the applicant, filed an application with the Zoning Hearing Board of the City of Scranton seeking a variance to convert 2-unit home to 4 units at 1321 Dartmouth Street.
Again,
The
I'm not
board
aware of
voted
any.
5-0.
So, again, I don't know if an application was put in. I have nothing to dispute that, but I don't believe that that was ever presented before this body, nor was it ever adjudicated by you.
Well,
I have to, on behalf of the city, I have to disagree. That it was before this board. Both of these 2 properties that we discussed on Dartmouth Street were before this board on the same night, same hearing, and there was 2 separate applications, 2 separate findings of facts.
Well, I would specifically request the transcript of that hearing then, because the city should have it. You're required to maintain them, so.
let's table it until you get it.
That's your decision.
It's your decision if you want to ask for the table is still.
Well, listen, I'd like to, I could request it either way, but if I need it for a hearing before the Court of Common Pleas. But again, the operable fact here is very simple. Intent to abandon a non-conforming use. And if the city's going to tell us that this 4-unit property existed for 40 years illegally and nobody did anything about it, despite the fact that it was before the board. If somebody came here to convert it to a 2-unit, nothing ever happened. It's a 4-unit building and always has been.
going to speak for myself. I want to speak for the rest of the board. I can remember some cases, but we're going back 3 years ago. I can't remember if that house came before us. I'm going to be straightforward with you. And I'm sure you can't remember all your cases.
I cannot.
But to be fair, like I said, I do remember 17 coming. I just can't remember if the other one came before us. Anybody else here?
Yeah. Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Board Member Walsh?
No.
Board Member Gattens?
No, I'm going to give the same explanation I gave before. I think we're going to have to listen to the side of the courts. I think there's two factors involved here that need to be ironed out and get the right answer. If you're correct, good luck with it.
Thank you.
Chairman McDermott?
I'm going to say no also for the same reason. They're very similar, the 4 units, the parking problem, the conversions. I think it's a good idea to let the court decide.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, we have Jabez Realty LLC seeks special exception to preserve ability to rent as a short-term rental Airbnb at 809 Delaware Street, R-10 zone. Will you please step up?
How can I get a transcript? On the sugar you need it?
Good evening. My name is Attorney Richard Rinaldi. I represent Jabez Realty. This is Pete Bonacuse, sole member of that LLC. What we're talking about here is 809...
If they're going to give testimony, can we swear them in?
Sure.
And that'll be out of the way.
I do.
Thank you. And what was your last name again, Pete?
Bonacuse,
Can you spell that, please?
B-O-N-A-C-U-S-E.
Thank you.
Your first name, for the record?
Peter.
I'm his wife, Rebecca Stokes.
Okay, now proceed.
Thank you. What we're talking about here is 809 Delaware Street, an Airbnb run by Mr. Bonacuse and Ms. Stokes. And we're talking about Section 445-30 of the Scranton Ordinance. My client filled this out before I was involved in the case. He checked that he wanted a special use exception. I'm going to say that's not the subject matter here this evening. What we're talking about is an interpretation, and it's the same issue as was talked about in the last 2 cases. And it's whether prior to, and my paralegal spoke to Mr. King this afternoon and got the date of the passage of Section 445-30, and very, very knowledgeable and informative, that we had to come and show, like Mr. Penetar stated earlier in the first case, that there was no abandonment. There was also no expansion. There was no expansion of use, expansion of area, that prior to December 20th, 2023, my clients operated this as an Airbnb, under your ordinance classified as a short-term rental, and we have evidence to show that. If I may, this is the property. That's the full listing as it is today. It's hard to show you what's happening on the internet from paper, but if you'll go to, 1 second. So if you'll go to the last page, I think it's the last page of 2023. So you'll see that all the reviews have a date, and many precede the December 20th, 2023. Now, to show further, and this is hard to do in paper, but if you had a device, you could go to that address, zoom in on it, and show that there was no, stop it, show that there was no change of use, expansion of use. The reviews will go from now back to February 2023 for that unit. It will show a continuous, consistent, pre-existing, non-conforming use, the same use it is run today. And so we're here for an interpretation that this would be a pre-existing non-conforming use and permission from the board to operate it as such.
Abraham, why are we here for this case?
So,
Was this
809 Delaware, someone in the neighborhood made a complaint that it was an Airbnb. I looked into it. I was able to find the listings on the website on Airbnb, and it proves that, they were operating a short-term rental without the proper special exception required for that zone that it's in. So that's really all.
So it's been illegal since whatever date he's saying they've been doing it.
I think what he's saying is, prior to the passage of this new ordinance, it was legally used as an Airbnb. That's his argument.
That's
Am I
correct.
right,
That's
Attorney
correct.
Rinaldi?
That's- Thank you very much. That's right. So it would be legally pre-existing, non-conforming use, which is a legal use. And grandfather, the short term we all know is grandfather. And they purchased it that way, ran it that way, haven't expanded the use, haven't expanded the area. The two criteria the courts look at, hasn't changed it definitely hasn't abandoned it, and you have a list of it there stemming from now until a time that predates the passage of that particular ordinance. And it will show that this is a classic definition of a pre-existing, and I believe we meet the burden with that long string of, it just shows every month just the same. It's pretty clear.
So it's pre-existing. You're saying it's legally pre-existing.
Correct. So it was run as an Airbnb, short-term rental, prior to passage of the ordinance, and that's what that shows. And the ordinance is passed, they start running it technically as an Airbnb. They had short-term rental before this, but technically what we've shown you is February 2023 till now, it's been run as a short-term rental. The ordinance was passed in December 20th, per Mr. King's instruction or information, and it's been run the same way it's run the same way today as it was run prior to passage of the ordinance. So legally, technically, it's a pre-existing non-conforming use, which is maybe not a good name for it, because that's a legal use, but it sounds like maybe it's not, but that is a textbook grandfather.
Does your client live in that house? Does your client live in the house?
He does not.
And Dan, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. When we had that case over in Greenwich under the short-term rental, wasn't it a requirement, or was it not a requirement, that the owner live in that house under the old ordinance?
Do I remember?
I mean, I think
the
that
definition
the
of
Reiner probably comes to mind, and that was one of the things that
The
came up with.
definition of Airbnb was that the owner did reside at the property.
And that was under short-term rental at that time
Under
as
short-term
well.
rental under the old ordinance.
So they might have been running at that time, but the old ordinance did require them to live in that house.
I would defer, I would ask, if I may, because I was told by Mr. King, my paralegal I was in the room, that if we could show a pre-existing use prior to December 20th,
correct,
2023, that would do it. Now,
Let me correct you. What I told you, if you could show that it was a legal non-conforming use.
So
before passage.
Before the passage.
That's
of this
correct.
ordinance.
So what I'm saying is,
that's correct.
Going by the old ordinance, for short-term rentals, it was called back then, as you stated, and that's what it was. Airbnbs really weren't in that ordinance. The owner had to live in that property to rent it out as a short-term rental. And that was the Reiner case over in Greenwich, which created a large back and forth for numerous hearings here. And that was what came down out of it. So I'm just telling you what it was at the time. You can research it, you can come back. But we'll come off of that for a second.
I was going to say, let's come off of that for a second, because even if you decide that it was not a legal non-conforming use, the application is such that you could still grant it as a special exception because it is an allowed special exception under R10.
Right, but what I'm saying, it should not be grandfathered in.
I'm just saying, if you decide one, you could go to the other.
Well, if it's a special exception, I believe the criteria that Mr. Gattens mentioned would have to be met, which is that the owner would have to live there 6 months out of the year.
Correct.
And I just stated that he doesn't live there.
Right.
I'm not here trying to, I'm not.
But I mean, but you're using the old ordinance to grandfather it in. So I mean, if the old ordinance wasn't being followed legally, then it wasn't being followed legally.
And along that point, I agree with you generally. However, the old specific clause of that ordinance would have to be substantially the same as this new passage. In other words, it'd have to be not really a new passage. And so we are here to present that that was not the case. We don't have the language of, so here, we have the burden. I know that. We've come here to show there's been a consistent use. You come back and say, but I think there was a requirement, and you may be right, and I don't dispute that. However, I believe we carried our burden, and we don't have the language of the old ordinance here in front of us to say that that provision was substantially similar to this one. That one criteria may have been, in fact, the case. But when you look at the entire passage of a provision, so there's other requirements here. Was that the package, or was that one part of it? And I think, I mean, you could defer to your own solicitor on this, but...
We will.
Of course. And I would too. He's really good.
Yes,
but
he is.
We don't have it, we don't have it in front of us. What we've come with is honesty. He's a lifelong member of Scranton. This is a stellar property. You have the reviews. His wife runs it. She's known all over. I mean, these are not out-of-staters coming in. He bought it like that. He's been using it like that.
Read the definition. It does not say to be.
And I'm sure he'd like to speak.
But well, I'm glad he's going to speak, because I want to ask him a question, so come on up.
Yes.
When you put that driveway in, you put an additional driveway in there for parking, am I correct?
Yeah, it was an accident.
Did that come before zoning to get that approved?
No, it didn't.
So was there permits pulled to put that driveway in?
No, there wasn't.
Okay. That's the only question I have for you right now.
Okay. But that property was a mess. The reason that happened was I was away and some guy, one of my tenants had a backhoe. He did me a favor, and he took all the pavers out of there and took them to his place. I had to put concrete in because water was coming in the basement. But anyway, that's not what we're here for.
Okay.
Well, anyway, that place was a mess. That was a hoarder house. I took 17 two-ton dump truck loads of junk and stench out of that place. I cleaned it up. I cleaned that. It's the best thing that happened to that neighborhood. Okay? I mean, I don't know why people are complaining. Because they were buddies with the guy who used to live there, but he died years ago. And
it happens. You know it happens.
I brought new life into that property, and it's just to do it, you know, because that's what I do. I've been doing this for 42 years, and in the city, I've been buying property like that and shining it and cleaning it and making it beautiful, and that's what I do. And my wife came along, and she became my wife, and said, hey, what could you do over here? That's all. It was never a plan really to do this Airbnb. This was all organic. It came about. We could go midterm. We have people that stay there for a year, 11 months, doctors, nurses, mostly medical people. They're and tourists. You can't imagine the tourists that come to Scranton, Pennsylvania from like Poland and Ireland. They come there to stay and visit the city. I mean, it's a popular thing. This is an asset to the city.
We're not disputing.
Okay,
I mean, I'm sure you run a good business. I'm not there, so I don't know, but I'll take your word. You run a good business.
My wife is there more than she's at home. She's there. She practically lives there, cleaning the place.
But what I'm saying, if you let me finish, we're here to see if it's legal or not legal, is what it's coming down
She
to.
kind of resides there.
Good.
I mean, for 6 months out of the year.
May I just dovetail quickly on that, and then I'll let you speak to Ms. Stokes. We believe the only requirement not met here is the permanent residence prong. And because it doesn't say, it says occupy for 6 months of the year. Occupy is different than, it could be looked at different than, and that's another thing. When you go back to that old ordinance where the definition's the same, and we believe the only prong my clients don't meet is the permanent residence prong. And really, that would have to be included in the old ordinance. Is the language exactly the same? Is the spirit exactly, is the intent of the legislators exactly the same for that one and the new one? Because we believe it would have to be, in essence, not a new law, just an updated old law. And we believe that this was a new passage of a new law to encompass a new category of renter and landowner. And that's what.
Technically, it does not say permanent residence. It says permanent address of the owner. And I've had that interpreted against me in Lackawanna County.
We lose that one either way. We can see that.
Yep, because you're not there anyway.
Yeah.
So we're looking for an easement on that.
Is there anybody else here that would like to give testimony?
Oh, if I could say something, thank you. I'm there almost every day, except if we go on vacation or on a business trip. I clean there every day of the week. I'm there for hours. Sometimes I go back at nighttime. I feel like I reside there. It's very well known. We're actually bringing a lot of business into Scranton. I have doctors and nurses. They are contracted with Moses Taylor, Geisinger. They're providing you all medical care, and they'd love to stay there. Some are there 11 months, so they're more long-term. And I do have some short-terms that stay 1 night, 2 night. They'll stay a week. And if you look at my reviews, I have almost a 5-star rating. I have almost 600 reviews on Airbnb. And it's very well known. Like I said, I have a lot of repeats. I have a lot of repeat customers that come, and a nurse will extend their contract. They like it so much, they make extensions a lot. So it's very lucrative for the city of Scranton. If you look in the reviews, a lot of them state that we're going to Zumo's Cafe. I love the cafe, it's in walking distance. I go to Planet Fitness down the street. I'm going to this restaurant and that restaurant. I'm going to, and things are very close. They love the neighborhood. It even states in there, the quiet residential neighborhood. There's also rules that these people have to follow when they come in. So there's no parties, there's no pets. So there's nobody, there's no animals running around. And it's a very well-run place. So.
Have you ever received complaints from the neighbors?
From the neighbors?
From the neighbors, about maybe you had one bad rental?
No, I have never
Nothing at
received
all.
a complaint.
Okay. How many, what's your limitation on people renting? So you rent the whole house out, am I correct?
Yes.
You don't rent by room, you rent the whole house.
Well, it can be room,
So
but it can be a whole house, too.
what's your limitation on the number of people that could be in that house at one time?
Limitation is 10,
Okay,
because it sleeps 10.
okay. And that's if I went over and I took 6 or 2 bedrooms or whatever it comes out to be, and someone else can come in and take the remainder. Is that what you're saying? So you have 2 rentals, 3 rentals on at the same time?
What, can you say that again?
So how many, I'll word it different. How many rentals can you put into that house, say, for one night? So if it's just myself and my wife, renting
So
it.
you would be one room if you wanted the same room.
Okay, so what I'm saying is, then you could be numerous rentals in there at the same time.
Rentees, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
correct.
thanks.
Yes. But if you look at the reviews, people state that in there, that they have no problems with it.
No, I'm not
Like
questioning that. I'm
Okay.
questioning the number and your limitation on parking that's there. You only have 2 spots.
A lot of people are Uber. They use
Well,
Uber.
but that's not a guarantee. That's not a guarantee. Like, if I go someplace and I use an Airbnb or whatever else the other ones are called, I bring my car. So, I mean, you can't assume that they're all going to be Uber. You have 2 parking
Well,
spots.
You can fit four cars, and then there's on-street as well.
We can't park on the street. We can't give you a variance or anything like that for street parking. Now, your driveway is how wide? Each driveway? The legal one, the illegal one? How wide? You're saying you could fit 2 cars. Are they like... Well, you can't stack cars either. That's stacking. So, I mean, that's why I was wondering if you could side by side, but I don't think you can. I don't think your driveways are wide enough for that. So you actually have 2 parking spots is what you have, legal parking spots.
I don't believe, and I spoke to the zoning officer about this, I don't believe that the parking requirement is failed here in any way. I understand your point about the occupants, but I don't believe that that's tied to the way it's written in the ordinance. There's a certain amount, there's a certain amount of parking that needs to be for this, and I believe, and I'm not going to speak for anyone else here, I had a conversation with the zoning officer about it. That was not a concern of his at the time, and I agreed with that interpretation. That's all. With regard to, has there been any...
If it's grandfathered in, then the parking grandfathered in also.
And that's...
If it's grandfathered.
If it is. With regard to complaints on the street of the neighbors, there's been no formal complaints of any noise, garbage, parties.
I didn't say there was. That's what I was just asking if she had
Yeah.
any complaints. I
No,
mean, it's like, these are all over the country, and you have, and I'm not saying the house. You have good renters and bad renters is what I'm saying. I was wondering if they experienced where the neighbors were put out because there was a problem at different times and how they would handle it, or how they handled it. That's what I was going to get at.
Yeah, no, and that's a great question. And one of the things I learned when I ask a question like that is that actually the renters are screened like the landlords are. So the renters have ratings. So if this is a highly desired property that's high on demand, they could be very discriminating. They only want renters rated.
Can I say something?
And that's what it's been.
Yeah, I get it.
Airbnb has a rating system, and you know, we rent to superhosts, other people that are involved in Airbnb, and people that have stayed in places 10, 20 times, and we read them, and how many stars do they have? Because these as renters have stars. I mean, and we have stars, 5 stars.
Cruz, I wasn't questioning anything. I was just wondering if you had a bad rental.
We don't, and I help my...
But if you did have I know you don't, but there's always tomorrow. I was just wondering what your procedure would be to handle that. If I called you at, say, 2 o'clock in the morning, if the party broke out and everything, how would you handle that?
I'd come right over.
Okay.
I'm a few blocks away.
That was my question. It wasn't
few
saying
blocks
you're
away.
doing anything wrong, you had bad rentals or anything like
No,
that.
but that's how Airbnb works.
Okay.
Yeah, they're screened. On Airbnb, there's criteria, to be on Airbnb, and they have to submit to me the reason that they're staying. I have to approve them. I don't have direct booking. You can't just book and show up at my house, in my property. You can't do that.
Right.
So I have to go on there and accept those people in. So if they're already pre-screened, then I'm screening them before they come in.
Is this the only Airbnb you have in the city?
No comment, yeah.
Okay. Just wondering,
Country one there. One in the country.
In the country, in Dalton.
Anybody else?
Okay, is there anybody else like to give testimony?
I do. Laura Augustini, President of the Green Ridge Neighborhood Association. And I'm sorry, but the people who had asked me to come here tonight, they aren't here. They are neighbors of this property, and they have lodged complaints with us that predate 2023. This has been an illegal short-term rental since they've started renting it. There isn't enough parking. There are a lot of problems with parking on that street. The neighbors had tried to address it with the owner and were rebuffed. I also want to point out that on the zoning ordinance that I'm aware of, short-term rentals are limited to stays of 7 consecutive days, and they're talking about people who stay there for a lot longer. And in the new ordinance, and I believe in the old ordinance, as you guys have said, the owner must reside on the property. And that was a big thing when we looked at when this new zoning ordinance was enacted, is we wanted to make sure that there was responsibility for any of these short-term rentals, because we were concerned about what could happen in an R10 zone, in an R11 zone. And so I object to this Airbnb, to the special exception being granted.
May I have a moment to rebut? I agree completely with that testimony that this was a new ordinance to address a new issue when it was passed, and that whatever was before was not. And in that case, this cannot be an illegal pre-existing. Those two statements cannot be, they are mutually exclusive, gentlemen. They are. And if this ordinance was passed to address this new thing, my clients were operating that before that, and they were operating it well before that. And if this is a complaint, and I'm not saying it's not legitimate, it's the first one we've heard. It's the first one since February 2023 you've heard. Police have never heard one. Garbage people, DWP hadn't heard one. Zoning officer didn't complain about parking. I mean, we agree that this was to address, this ordinance in December 2023 was to address this new thing that was going to be Airbnb and these short-term rentals as well, finally, and I'll be quiet. Anything above a short-term rental wouldn't classify as a short-term rental, wouldn't need this special exception. So anything that's over, whatever occupancy is over a short-term rental would take this out of the realm. My clients aren't saying that. We're not going to get into the weeds. They do both. We're here telling the truth, and they're good hosts. And this was a pre-existing non-conforming use. I believe a textbook one, and I believe we've shown that by the string of use from now until then.
I think the argument is, and maybe I'll...
Hang on a second.
I'm going to interpret what you said. Okay. Ms. Augustini said that her testimony was that it was illegal when it started because the owner didn't reside at the property, which was a requirement under the old ordinance as well as under the new ordinance. I think that's what her testimony was. Am I right?
Yes, but it's our contention that it has been an illegal short-term rental since the beginning.
Because the owner didn't reside there. Because
under the old ordinance, the owner had to reside there, and the owner does not reside there. I was actually going to question how we could have an owner as Jabez Realty, because I didn't realize that it was only one person in the LLC, but how can we have an LLC reside at a short-term rental property? And I think that's something that's going to need to be clarified.
Well, and like you said, Dan, it's not reside, it is the permanent resident and
permanent address.
And reside.
And reside. For at least six months of the year.
Let us do our thing here.
Yep.
So, what are we looking for here? We're looking for a special exception.
No, I believe he was looking to have this recognized as a legal nonconforming use.
That's correct. Interpretation is
Right.
what,
So we're going to do a yes or no vote like we did.
however, now, that,
Sorry.
in the alternative, we would say a special exception. We believe the stronger argument is the nonconforming use. We believe that's legitimate history here. And I believe that Ms. Augustine said it was illegal because of the parking back then. I don't believe she mentioned, and we can go to the court reporter, I don't believe she mentioned the same issue that you brought
No,
up.
I think she mentioned the order had to
she did say
reside
it.
there.
So, Dan, we're going to do 2 votes on this, an interpretation vote, and then go back to a special exception? If
I
he
believe
amends
so,
this application, or does he amend it
because
beforehand?
he's got both sitting before us.
Well, he only, right now, I'm looking at just the
The
special
application
exception.
says special exception, but Attorney Rinaldi said that it should have been grandfathered in, so they don't need the special exception. If you deny that it was grandfathered in, they do need the special exception,
That's-
then you got to vote on the special
Correct.
exception.
Okay,
That's correct.
that's why I just want to make sure we're going to do this
That is
correctly.
correct. Yep.
So the first, what we're going to do is look at the, if it's grandfathered in or not.
Correct.
Correct. And that's a yes or no vote.
Correct.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we vote on whether this is going to be grandfathered true from the old ordinance over to the new ordinance.
Second that?
Board Member Walsh?
No.
Board Member Gattens?
No.
Chairman McDermott?
No.
Okay, now you got to go to the special exception request, which is what the original application is for.
Okay.
And that
I'll
would,
make a motion. Hang on one second. I just want to think of something here. So with our first vote, we're looking at this as a special exception to the new ordinance.
under the new ordinance, an Airbnb is allowed, or a short-term rental, I'm sorry, is allowed as a special exception. And the special exception,
Yeah, where is that in our book?
6.3,
Hang on one second, if you don't mind.
is the criteria for the special exception.
That's what I
If you look at R10, R10 uses, under accessory uses, short-term rental has SE next to it,
Right.
meaning special exception. So the criteria for special exception is under 6.3.
Right. But what is the, I'm looking for the requirements for the short-term / Airbnb, whatever we're calling them now, as far as parking and everything else that has to be attached to it somewhere in there.
That's you guys.
Well, there are requirements.
There are requirements.
Yeah, the requirements
Under
under,
the special exception, it's on page 109 if you have your book there.
That's what I'm looking for, yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, the exception is to section 445-30. That's the requirement.
Yeah,
And then is that correct?
We're talking the same thing, we're using different numbers. You're using the codified version that's online.
Okay.
We're actually using the ordinance that
and
was
that is
printed out.
same-
So
okay, that's good.
the Same
Reads the same.
wording, just different
Okay,
numbering
very
system.
good.
All right, this is what I was looking at, is under 6, well, it's on 109, we'll do it that way. AAA, short-term rental. Short-term rental shall provide 1 off-street parking space per bedroom available for rental.
yep, I see that now.
Yeah. So I'll make a motion that we vote on the request for a special exception for this property under the new ordinance.
Second?
Board Member Walsh?
No.
Board Member Gattens?
No.
Chairman McDermott?
No.
I have an inquiry.
By the vote of 3-0, you've been denied.
I want to, can I get a copy of the previous ordinance that this board relied on.
You can request that.
Yeah, can I?
The city will provide that to you.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just give you my email, and shoot me an email, and we'll go from there.
No, I was talking to her, no, I said this guy is right here, not you, yeah, and he is. I'm not from that town.
All right.
Attorney Rinaldi.
Rinaldi?
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I'll have to figure out where he's at. I don't know where his office is.
So, next on the agenda, so this one's a little special. I was talking, as you guys saw earlier, I was talking to a lady right here in the corner. She has trouble speaking English, so she had requested somebody to come. Like, she had a friend that was supposed to come here, but they ended up not coming. So she's asked, so if we can table it, because she needs somebody to interpret for her. Yeah, that's okay? Okay, should we vote on that, or?
Should we take, there's some people here in the audience, I'm assuming that, should we take their testimony so they don't have to come back?
Are there people here for 3203? Okay. Okay, so it's up to you guys. Probably best to take their testimony, or probably best to just have them come back in February?
So, why don't we take it, if they want to come back when the hearing takes place again?
You can come back
Yeah,
again.
if the applicant needs an interpreter, I think they'd be at a disadvantage if they can't understand what the neighbor's testimony is. I know I don't like to drag people back for a second time, but to be fair, if they need interpreter services, then they're most likely not going to understand the neighbor's testimony, and they'll be at a disadvantage.
Yeah, I think they should come back. I think you should come back on this.
Can I say something? If you knew in the beginning of this tour.
No, they said that it just happened.
They didn't
a
show
little
up.
while
Her
ago.
interpreter didn't show up.
She was here. And
She was here, and that's what Abraham
The
was.
applicant was talking to Abraham at that fence over there, that rail over there.
Yeah,
The interpreter
yep.
didn't show up.
Because we sat here for 2 hours.
I get it, I get it, we're in agreement with you.
Well, then could you put us first on the agenda next time?
I think that's fair.
Yes, we can do that.
That's fair. That's fair.
I'll make sure that happens. I'll make sure you guys are the first one on the agenda next month.
We like manukas, we have no problem with you first.
noticed by the same placards that are on the telephone poles, or?
Do you live within 200 feet of,
Yes.
Not 200 feet. We live like 5 houses down.
so that's why you probably did it. The surrounding neighbors would only,
Yeah, they'll
the placard will be there.
I'll also make sure to get you guys. I'll get you guys in the net that we send out. You said what house do you guys live at?
Second Wednesday of the month is when this hearing is.
Well,
I have a quick question. When it comes to special exceptions, is it to the property or to the owner? To the property.
So then, just for my knowledge, so if the property is granted a special, whatever, and then sells the property already has that.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, could I just get your guys' names?
There's my email, so if any of you want to shoot me an email with your name, we'll make sure you get a notice when it comes out.
I'm sorry for the aggravation. It's hard sitting.
It's understood.
Okay, thank you. Do you know your neighbor's names?
you said.
Okay. Thanks.
Been a long time, right?
Second Wednesday, right?
Second Wednesday. Thank you, thanks for coming.
Take care.
Shay Abraham, ready?
Should we vote on it, or wait for to table it? Table it, yeah.
I'll make a motion to table it.
Second?
Board Member Walsh?
Yes.
Board Member Gattens?
Yes.
Chairman McDermott?
Yes.
Okay.
By vote of 3-0,
Really
this case has been tabled.
I'm not available the second Wednesday in February.
Also, I didn't advertise anything.
Yeah, so I was going to tell you tonight as I'm looking at my calendar. We have to do it to the third Wednesday in February.
Yeah, that should be fine.
Okay. Third Wednesday, I'm okay.
Okay.
All right, next on the agenda, we have Mohammed Abdullah / Bella Wholesale, Inc. seeks variance to convert 2-unit home into 4-unit residential and an office space at 724 Court Street, R-10 zone. Please step up.
Yes, it's Mohammed Abdul.
Can you please raise your right hand? I'll swear you in. Thank you. Do you solemnly swear affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes,
Thank you.
I swear. Mr. Goodfield is here. He's a professional certified contractor with City of Scranton.
Okay, can he be sworn in too?
Yes.
Swear.
You need to swear everyone in at once. Do you solemnly swear affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
My name is Edmund Goodfield.
We are here for a long time, and I appreciate if you really use common sense to evaluate this case. Mr. Ibrahim also give us advice to come here, and we are using common sense. That's number one. I really appreciate that. This house, Mr. Patrick's, on his advice, 10 years ago, I turned this into 2-family house, and we honor. And there was one house has 10 bedroom, and I believe nobody can rent 10 bedroom as a single house. I don't think people can survive like a 10-bedroom family house. So I was, starving with hardship and all those things going on, but I'm honoring all the words. But I think it's the time to stand up, and Mr. Goodfield has all the dimensionals and exactly know what has to be done and what can be, because he's been here almost, I think, 30 years working here. And Mr. Ibrahim also advised me to come here because he see and he understands the hardship we have. So I appreciate you see what he says, and then based on the facts, I hope you're going to consider and make us move forward. The only thing I like this house, because it's one of the beautiful house. It has a lot of details. I mean, I'm not worried about the tenants and all those things, because I'm running a motel, 90-bedroom motel in Dunmore. So we are not greedy about those things. But I would appreciate if you see him and see his comments, Mr. Ibrahim comments, and see what you make to see him.
I guess I lived in that neighborhood my whole life. I went to school with all the kids in that house. But what had happened was, before Mohammed bought the house, it was condemned. In the city of Scranton, when they condemned the house, they brought everything down to 2-family. So it was brought down to a 2-family, and I was actually hired to remove 2 of the electric meters off the house because it was 4. I did remove that, got permits, all that. So now we're in a little different position, and like I said, having a hard time renting a 10-bedroom house. So we did some measurements of the lot. The lot is 66 foot wide, and it's 38 feet from the back of the property line to the house. So that'll actually allow 6 parking spaces. So we'll have off-street parking for 6 cars, totally off the street.
Where are you putting those 6?
Across the back. I don't know if you have a copy of this.
How are you accessing that?
Yeah, we don't have a copy of
There's
it.
a-
We don't have your. No, we don't have a copy.
Would you like mine?
Yeah. It's a full lot. Actually, this was demolished as a parking lot.
Also, I'll say maybe there's a little bit of confusion with the address. The house we're talking about is on the corner.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right.
But I'm just looking online here, there's...
Yeah,
we know where it is.
And this property
You'd have to
also
stack it,
has
right?
2 addresses, like one on the Court Street side and one address on the Diamond Street side. Even in your tax department, they mention this property as a Court Street, Diamond Avenue. So this tunes everything's. And there was, in the basement, there was enough space to park 6 horses there. So, there's already space there. So this house has a lot of details, a lot of history, and structure-wise, it's very strong. And I don't want to make, nobody can live in 12-bedroom apartment.
I get it. Now, let me ask you a question. You were here before us a couple years back for the same property, weren't you?
Say again?
You were here a few years back with the same property, weren't you?
Yes, 8 years ago.
Yep, we
Am I
remember.
right?
Well, I don't know if it was 8 years ago.
Yes.
I'd say about 5, 6
We don't have
maybe.
the detail, actually. I know your question at that time was concerned about the park, and Mr. Goodfield is...
How wide is that, Mr. Goodfield, how wide is that lot from the fence on the left side looking in at that
38,
lot?
38.
38.
To the porch?
Yeah,
It's
38.
listed on there.
38 feet.
Oh,
And lengthwise 60...
20.
No.
Yeah. According to your drawing, it's
38. Total space is 38.
Well, the porch is sticking out. I'm talking about...
No. Porch can be removed. I mean,
Take your drawing then.
Yes.
I'm going by what you give us. It's 28 on that drawing to the porch. I'm asking what the fence, stop. I'm asking what the fence to the porch is. 28. That's what you're showing on your drawing.
28 plus 4. The 4, we put the clearance, which you need for the parking in front. This is a total 6. If this porch is...
okay, so it's 6 feet to the porch is 32 feet, would be your answer.
So, are you leaving the porch there, or you're taking the porch off?
I like to take it out, as long as if everything... This porch has nothing, anything special, it's just outside.
Is it a means to exit the house?
I beg your pardon?
Is it a means to exit the house?
No, there is a doors there, and there's a 2 steps only from the door. But this porch, it was designed long time ago. But this porch has no any structural issues with the building. Building is separately, and this is just a wooden structure in front of the building. So it can be removed.
Yeah, maybe I can put it this way. If it needs to be removed, it can be, without messing up the egress.
I mean, you're not gaining. I'm looking at the picture of your porch here. What are you going to gain? 2 feet? You're going to have to build steps to get out of the house. So what are you gaining? 2 feet?
4 feet.
I don't see it.
What do you mean by 2 steps?
How many steps? It's only 2 steps down.
2 steps.
It's 2 steps off the porch.
Yes.
Well, what I think Mr. Walsh is saying, you take the porch off, you still got to put steps coming out
So,
that door.
yeah, you still need
So
2
you're
steps.
going
Which is 2 feet.
what you're gaining, you're going to lose 2 feet of, right?
Right.
So,
No, we're going to gain 4 feet.
right. Well, 6 minus 2 is 4. We're getting at. So then you're coming off that fence, instead of being 36 feet, it's 32 feet.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying? And you need 18 feet for. Now, do you have a buffer on the left-hand side on that drawing?
Yeah, there's a 4-foot buffer on the left side.
Okay.
And on the right side.
So now
there's
you got 18, you have 22 feet. You have the 4-foot buffer and the 18-foot spot, so you have 22 feet. And you only have 10 feet, I think you need 11 or 13, if I'm not correct, for that
Yeah,
driveway.
one side is 12, one side is 4, and other side is 4.
That driveway to take them into the parking spots needs to be 11 or 13 feet?
What's your question?
I'm asking.
I believe it's 11.
11. So we're looking at 33 feet, so you don't have the clearance to do what you want to do there. And this is what we went through the first time you were here. The
Yeah, no, at that
exact
time,
same
the
thing.
specification was not clear, and I couldn't explain well. That's maybe...
Oh, you did, I mean, just like you did tonight, but you don't have the measurements that you
No, but
need.
Today I have a gentleman who knows what he's...
You're saying you need 11 foot for parking straight in, like?
You need 18 feet, 9 by 18 a parking spot is.
The driveway has to be 11.
The driveway to get them into that spot has to be 11 feet wide.
Nine.
So what if we turn them at an angle, put 4 spots at an angle?
You still need, 18, and then you still need the driveway coming in,
Right.
you know?
I think you'd make.
But you're only going to get,
You're
4
talking
spots.
about this, like on the angle?
That's your opinion. Stand back there. Stand back there.
See, if you only need 4.
Yeah, you need only 4 parking. Mr. Ibrahim told us. Yes.
Well, I'm a little confused because the application says 4 residential units and an office space.
No, that's actually our warehouse we just put, but I want to see as an office, like for my personal use. Yeah, it's just a room. No, we don't use it.
Yeah, you see right here. This isn't an application.
Yeah.
Storage space.
Your application says
storage space into
Storage
Yeah, we just put a
personal use.
storage.
right.
Sorry.
Well,
Strike the office.
Office.
Yeah, because there is like a weird little section of the house on the side that.
Right on that corner.
Yeah, that's literally when he opened the door for me. It doesn't go into the house. It's literally just that
Like
one
a
area.
store or something was it
Storage,
at the time,
store. Who knows what it was in the past? Yeah. So.
Is anyone living in the house right now?
Only one tenant.
So when I went out there and did my my inspection, I only met one tenant, but the other rooms that were there, they looked lived in. You know, they had a kitchen. So for example, the second floor, which was the one he was talking about that had 10 rooms, the tenant who was there, the Spanish lady, she was on, let's say, the right side. They had their own kitchen with their own supplies with all the rooms there. And then on the left side of that same exact floor, there was another kitchen as well. And then it goes upstairs to like a cluster of rooms for the people who use that kitchen. So and most of the doors were locked though. So.
Yeah, I told the tenant because you're going to come back again and recheck and everything, it will be removed, the locks removed from the door.
Yeah.
And
2 units.
I'm going to reschedule inspection again, maybe this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'll just bring up another issue. That property is located in a flood zone, and I sent,
I saw that.
I sent an email
Yes.
when I saw this application come in.
I saw that.
When a residence is substantially improved in a flood zone, it has to be brought into full compliance with the floodplain regulations.
Okay.
Which means that the lowest floor elevation, including the basement, if there's a basement in there, has to be elevated above the base flood elevation, which in that area is probably 6 or 7 feet deep. So you would have to raise that whole house up, or get rid of the basement and maybe raise the first floor.
Yeah, basement can be get rid if you really.
I'm just letting you know,
respect.
If this is approved.
I respect the laws.
When we get the building permits,
No, as I said,
we're going to be looking at. I don't want you to be surprised and say, "Well, I got the zoning approval.
Yes.
Why didn't you tell me about this?"
Mr. Goodfield, I don't think he
wanna-
understands what is being said there. I don't think he's grasping that you have to raise the house up to get it on the floodplain.
The basement can be.
No, the first floor too.
The first floor is about like like from the front porch, it's like 4 or 5 feet.
But if it requires a 7 or 8 foot, you'd have to raise it
No.
up. No, from the ground.
Oh, okay.
From the ground. From the ground.
Yeah.
So.
Listen, I mean, this house is there.
The lowest floor elevation has to be 1.5 feet above what the flood level is.
It is.
Well, you're going to have to prove that to us by a survey or a certificate.
Oh, yeah, we can do that.
But I'm saying, if you have a basement, if there's a basement in there and you have your furnace and everything down there,
No, we
all
don't
of that
have furnace.
has to be.
No, we don't have furnace. Only we have electric heater, water heater.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, we don't have.
And what it costs to elevate a house, you couldn't do it. Yep.
Is there anybody else that'd like to give testimony?
Thank you. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. Donna Romano, 1205 Diamond Avenue.
You said Donna
Romano. Okay, the man is not telling the truth. He has 10 rooms upstairs he's renting them out individually, okay? The bottom apartment, okay, Section 8, Section 8 did not approve that apartment. The tenant had to move because there was sewer water coming down from the pipes. There's no parking. There's 4 cars, okay, and 2 commercial trucks that parked on our side. Some of them, there were more in the summer. It's a rooming house. They're paying $125 a room. He's lying. He is not telling the truth. Okay, we had rodents in the yard, garbage all over the street. I mean, he's not making any improvement to this house. He has a handyman that comes and works. No permits to put windows in. You go past that house, see how the windows are put in. You know, it's garbage. The screen doors are on ropes. They swing back and forth when the wind. He says I'm a nosy neighbor. He's a liar. He's a damn lawyer. $125 a room.
Okay, we don't have to.
I'm sorry. But you know what? Something has to be done. Garbage all over the streets, rats in the yard. Come on. What is he doing? Now he wants to make it a 4-family house so he could do another rooming house downstairs. And you know what's sad? The sad part is he has his Spanish girlfriend upstairs. She lives with her boyfriend up there. And they're lying to him.
Okay, let's stick to the case, you know, without
Okay,
going
all
on.
right. So the house is trash. The house is trash. There's no parking. We have 2 commercial trucks, 4 cars.
Thank you.
In the summer, I had them park in my driveway. I had to get outside and ask them to move their cars. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
In the last 10 years, the city has maybe records if there is any ticket on this house, number 1. And I don't know, we don't have any ticket on this house. We have only 1 ticket, and we went to the court, and it was dismissed.
Okay.
They have a record of. Second, this lady, I respect neighbors. I respect people unless they don't respect themselves. She's sitting there watching around everything, and I don't know, it's maybe a personal reason. Maybe she doesn't like my
As
face.
the chairman said, let's just stick to the case. We're good on that.
Thank you.
That's your personal
Thank you
stuff
very
with
much.
the neighbors.
No, thank you, I respect.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, come on up. Behind you.
That gentleman there.
Sir, thank you. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm here to state, Anthony Sula. I'm here to state that she's absolutely right. There's actually 3 vans, 4 vans. There is 4 work vans and about 5 cars. It affects our parking, everybody else's parking. And I don't know how he's stating he only had 1 case against him. I had the zoning out there in the last 8 years at least, if you go back into your records, at least 8 times. If you were the man who pulled the permits for this job, he had unlicensed people doing the work there, who were caught on the site doing the work. If you go back into your records and look, that's all I'm going to tell you. I'm not going to get involved in, I'm not here to trash anybody, but if he pulled the work permit, you had unlicensed workers there. And you know you did. And you just... I don't even know who you are. You don't need to know who I am. I know, you did meet me.
Get him out.
They tried to have the house inspected.
Okay, anybody else?
And they got
Thank you.
stopped.
Next.
Don't say you don't know who I am.
Neighbors or what?
This is ridiculous that you have to do this. I'm sorry.
Do you solemnly
Okay.
swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Donna Moran. I live on Court Street, like 2 houses up from, but what we're all saying is, I don't know, we've been calling the city on this man, and we get the runaround, the runaround, the runaround. If you're the zoning, the code guy, you were out, you said that little room where he opened the door, if you see there was 3 windows put in there, the code enforcement officer was there speaking to someone while the guy was illegally putting the windows in the side, and he got in his car and took off. But the code enforcement was right there when it happened. The house is garbage all the time. The rats running around. It's cleaned up right now because he wants to, he had a dumpster there. There was 3 couches on an enclosed porch upstairs. Now, if that was a fire hazard, if there was a fire and they were trying to get out that door, they couldn't because there was 3 couches. There was a couch on the front porch with a tarp on it for months. Like, he's a slumlord. I'll put it plainly like that. He is a slumlord. And I don't know if you know someone or what, but this is like, we keep going and going and going at this. We were told by the lady that got put out on the first floor, he was going to get rid of her because he wanted to put another rooming house down there. And what happens? Puts the windows in that room, come before zoning so we could try to, he's going to do what he wants anyway because he does it upstairs. It's a rooming house. And nothing seems to be done with them, but hopefully we could, I've lived in my house since 1996, and let me tell you, that neighborhood has gone to trash because, I don't know, it's, you get these people and they come and buy a house and all they care about is the rent, nothing else. Nothing, it's a sad, sad situation. And the parking is terrible.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Board Member Walsh?
No.
Board Member Gattens?
Nope.
Chairman McDermott?
No. By a vote of 3-0, you've been denied.
I have one question for you. I don't know. Case is over. Well, is this, are you the zoning? Who do we go to? Because I'm trying to call this Robin lady 5 times. That's why I was told to call. I don't get a return phone call. I call the mayor's office. Oh, we'll get a hold of her. I never get a return phone call. When this guy is putting in windows illegally, when he's doing something, like she said, this is the honest to God's truth. The code guy came over and talked to him and left. He cut into a building, put 4 windows in. And the guy just gets away with everything. So, like, where's the weights and measures for us?
You would have to contact, for any work that's being done without a permit, that you believe is being done without a permit, you'd have to contact Andrew Sunday.
Yeah.
He's the director of the code enforcement inspectors.
Well, I said the best thing is to, if you could do it through our online system, then there's a record of it. You could come back the next day and look, and it'll tell you what inspector it got assigned to and what they found.
That incident that you're talking about, that I was definitely not there.
Building code enforcement's different than zoning.
Gentlemen, we have another case waiting. Let's move on. We're done. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, last case for the day. We have Lace Buildings Affiliates, LP, seeks variance to waive the building grade elevation requirement at 1315 Mailer Avenue, LI zone. Please step up.
Can you raise your hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Thanks for waiting.
No worries.
Hope you're getting paid by the hour.
We'll see. So, sure. My name is Dave Johns. I'm a professional engineer representing Lace Building Affiliates, and we've been working very closely on this project, specifically with Mr. King. This is requesting a variance on the building grade elevations for these historic properties. And basically, what we're saying is there's structural components, right? The structural capacity of these buildings that would be affected, and also the historic preservation of these buildings would not allow for the grade per the flood.
Yeah. Basically, like I just tried to explain to, normally on a building that's going to be habited residentially, the first floor has to be elevated above the flood level. There's an exemption in the National Flood Insurance Program for historic buildings. Now, in our ordinance, we put in there that they're supposed to comply with everything, but FEMA in the National Flood Insurance Program does allow you to give variances for historic buildings. So what I'd given you was a sheet from the FEMA website that basically says, if the building's on the National Register, or if the building's historic. So they've proven to us that it's on the National Register of Historic Places, and that the the variance must not preclude the structure from being continued to be historic. So we have a letter from the State Historic Preservation Officer saying that they reviewed their plans and the work that they're planning to do will not make it unhistoric, I guess is not a...
Is this for all the buildings? Is this coming from all the buildings that are like being worked on?
These are the historic buildings, not the new townhouses.
Right.
This is the existing, the buildings that exist.
The existing buildings.
Like the original-
existing buildings original to Scranton Lace.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure. So I know the townhouses are raised, I think the garages or something
Yeah,
is
the
underneath them.
townhouses are being
Correct, right.
elevated and have flood vents. And
So, well,
I'll make a motion.
yeah, and just to say that, I mean, that project's got to keep going through the way it is. It's a great project and everything, and I'll second the motion.
Board Member Walsh?
Yes.
Board Member Gattens?
Yes.
Chairman McDermott?
Yes. By a vote of 3-0, you've been approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's worth the wait.
No worries.
Meeting adjourned. There you go.